asking me questions.
Welcome to TranscendenceRadio.com. I'm your host, Rodrigo Soto, and on today's show, we're going to be discussing the topic of mind control and such projects such as MK Ultra. Tomorrow, we're going to be having a larger broadcast on TruthCatRadio.com live at 8 p.m. EST Friday night, and you'll be able to listen to that here on TranscendenceRadio.com as well as TruthCatRadio.com. We'd like to thank our guest Lucy Rogers for coming on today's show. Lucy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Rodrigo?
I'm doing great. I know that this is a formal introduction. We've been chatting for hours all the time, but just for the listeners' point of view, they can get an understanding of who you are. I know who you are. You know, awesome person.
Yeah.
Love you to bits.
Yeah. So, actually, Rodrigo and I have chatted for quite some time and know each other pretty well, and have discussed this personally, macrocosmically as it applies to macro specifically.
Yeah.
So, in other words, how it's applied to our own lives and how we've seen it throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that, Rodrigo?
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would take this opportunity to say that we plan to go forward with this show and talk about Project MK Ultra later at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
But tonight we just like to talk about mind control in general and how it may or may not be affecting current events that we see happening on the news.
Such as what events on the news? Because I'm a hermit.
Okay, such as I'm sure everyone knows, we are in the classic middle of a presidential election here in America.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago, we had the Republican Party convention, and in this country, as many people know, in the United States, we have basically a two-party system. We have the Republican Party and we have the Democratic Party. That's how we elect our presidents and congressional officials. We are a representative republic, which doesn't mean we vote on every little thing. It means that we elect representatives to represent us in Congress and vote for us. And that's also another very interesting topic because there are many people here in America who feel that it is no longer a representative republic, it's just a republic. And whoever has the most money buys into the representatives to represent what the most money says they want,
Right.
which is not necessarily representing the people. And I say that, what the point I'm trying to make there is that many, many people here in America are disenfranchised. And what I mean by that is that, I watched a show last night on Frontline, which is a documentary show with very good reviews that's considered to be real and real journalism. And it's a documentary, and the documentary was about children that live in poverty and are hungry in America. We usually think of hunger as a third world undeveloped country problem, don't we?
Yes, that's a general stereotype.
Yes. If you looked for this show that I watched on Frontline last night, I think you would find it available on your computers and anywhere you want. You just have to search Frontline. And you'll be able to view that program just as I did last night. It profiled 3 families here in America between Illinois and Iowa, which is in the Midwest, the very middle of our country, which used to be based in farming communities. And all of these 3 families are dealing with children that are living in hunger. In other words, every day they wake up, they're talking about they don't have enough to eat for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And some of them only eat once a day. Now, typically we think of this as a problem, like I said, as a third world country problem, and it's really not. This is a problem we see frequently here in America. And I have the feeling we see this frequently in Australia and other developed countries as well.
Yeah.
But, however, departing from that topic, what we're really here to talk about tonight is about mind control. And it does feed into that larger issue, but I think we have to start at one kernel of truth and expand from that. So I think what Rodrigo and I would like to start at is the issue of mind control, if it's real, if it's not, and how are the ways that it's achieved, and how it applies to current events in the news we see every day right now.
So, where do you want to start? Like, does it exist? That's a very good question. Does mind control actually exist? And would you like to discuss the ways mind control exists?
Yes, I would, very much so. I want to go to if you search YouTube and you look at the various police shootings that have been happening across the country, as well as other violent acts, let's say in Nice, in France, by singular people that are not necessarily affiliated with Al-Qaeda or any group in Afghanistan or ISIS, that the mainstream media tells us are what I would say radicalized. And that's why they're committing these acts. We've had that situation in Nice. That man killed 180 people, hijacking a truck and driving it down a main road in Nice where they were watching fireworks. Then we've had a lot of police shootings here in America, and I mean a lot of them. And anyone who searches on YouTube for these issues in America can see that happening. And on the flip side of that, 3 weeks ago in Baton Rouge, I live in Louisiana. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. Baton Rouge is our city capital of Louisiana. 3 weeks ago in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we had a shooting of 6 police officers, and 3 of them were killed. And in America, that's a pretty big deal. I would think everywhere in developed countries that's a pretty big deal, but I would say certainly here in America that is a very big deal. And it sort of threw everyone for a loop, so to speak. The reason I think this applies to mind control is in watching all the YouTube videos on live radio, in watching all the YouTube videos of citizens being shot by police before this happened, I came across a video of a man in Minnesota who was a therapist working with a autistic client in the street who was shot by police, and there were no weapons involved. The therapist nor the autistic client had a weapon. The police arrived on scene and shot the therapist. He lived through that, thank goodness. Okay. He asked the police officers why they shot him. And if we can believe what he says, the police officers answered him, "I don't know." And what I'm thinking is that our police force is increasingly reactively reacting in a way they don't have control over.
Yeah.
Because, at least in this country, our police force is not generally trained in the way that they are now reacting.
Right.
And it's causing a lot of violence in our country because we're seeing videos of specific racial profiled people being pulled over in traffic stops and being killed without really a warranted aggression in the sense of what we know police are trained by in this country.
Yeah.
So it's a very concerning thing. And my thought is on this subject, of everything I know about MK Ultra and mind control, that we're in a period of time, it seems to coalesce with the election and with an agenda to disarm the public here in America, which I think is only a topical. That's the first layer of the problem.
And that's actually what I think is happening. Could it be the possibility of implementation of martial law or before the presidency election?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Obama wants to stay in control.
Yeah, I think one thing that's very interesting about this particular election, watching it for me, standing back and watching it, is that with Trump and Hillary Clinton, what we've seen is that there's been a uptick in violence at campaign rallies, and we've never seen that in America before. America has always hosted campaign rallies during elections, and they've always been peaceful. Um, Whoever you supported and whatever your point of view was. But now we're seeing at actual campaign rallies, and I'm thinking mainly of Trump, that in many of his campaign rallies, there have been arrests and violence, and protesters who have resorted to violence. And that's kind of a new thing here in America. And I think it bodes very ill for the future for all of us. Because let's face it, America is the harbinger of democratic process throughout the world. Everyone watches America for that reason. I don't necessarily agree that our country is a super nation, but I do agree that we set a standard of what the democratic process should be and how it should be conducted. And the minute we devolve into violence during our democratic process for campaign rallies, I think that spells a kind of disaster for all of us. And I don't think it's any coincidence that all these police shootings, both of civilians and civilians firing back and killing police, are any accident in the time frame we're speaking of.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, in the last two shootings of police that have occurred in this country, both in Baton Rouge and I can't remember exactly where the other one was. I can give a link to that later tomorrow when we do another live show. Both those shooters were Marines that were veterans of foreign wars. And I think that's important. I think that's very important, especially when we get into discussing what MK Ultra was and what it meant and what its object was.
Right.
Because the object of Project MK Ultra and all the other projects that branched out of MK Ultra from 1952 on were mind control. And all that was hosted by the American military and the military industrial complex. So I don't think it's any accident what we see happening today. And I think a lot of people in America feel the same as me. They don't want to talk about it. There's a great attendant risk with talking about it, frankly. But somebody needs to talk about it because I frankly, I respect soldiers and for their sacrifice, and I respect police officers for what they do. However, I've watched videos of police officers that appeared to be murderous incidents with no call, with no reason. And I want to get to the bottom of that so that we stop it, not to engender more violence, not to cause a race war, not to cause a war in America between the authorities and, because a lot of people, let's face it, you addressed it, Rodrigo, when you said the FEMA camps, when you brought up the FEMA camps and martial law. We could also talk about the NDAA, the National Defense Act authorization that was signed during Obama's term, that supposedly authorized American citizens being declared subversive and terroristic and taken into custody with the what we call here in America with the suspension of habeas corpus rights, which means you have the right to an attorney and you have the right within 24 hours, if you're not charged, to be released. That's what habeas corpus stands for here in America. And that's a very important legal precedent in America and how our legal system works. And once you suspend habeas corpus and those basic rights of the population,
bullshit. That motherfucking police officer, scared ass fucking.
Sorry, that's my boyfriend in the background. Once you suspend that, then our whole legal system and constitution of rights goes to hell. It disintegrates from there, because that is the hinge-pin and the foundation. If you understand what I'm saying.
I don't, but carry on. It's only because I'm not versed that depth in the topics of what we're discussing. That just goes. That's new information, which is great, because I'm sure that a lot of listeners don't know that either. So keep going, because you're doing very well.
The reason that's all important is because if you hijack the population with a certain mind control, and you can control people like a puppet master, let's say,
right,
and from that point on, you can wage war between the basic authority figures in communities, in small communities. And the first level of authority figures in communities are police officers, that to ensure order, law and order. Okay, so if you can wage war between the community and its police force, so the police force is no longer protecting the public, it's at war with the public. And that's what I think we're seeing happening here,
right,
which is very, very important. If you denigrate that connection at that basic level here in America, then, and you cancel out constitutionally habeas corpus, which is the right for anybody to be innocent till they're proven guilty, to be given the right to have an attorney present when they're questioned, to be judged innocent before proven guilty. These are some of the fundamental issues of what the Constitution of America and our legal system and habeas corpus are based on.
yeah,
If you cancel all that out and you wage war between the lowest level of the community and the police force that protects it, and put them at war with each other, so that the police officers are no longer protection, they're a threat to the population rather than protection, then at the basic level, you have chipped away at a constitutional issue in America and the legal rights of civilians, and begun a takeover, so to speak. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. And then if we could go from there to how mind control might apply to that.
Can't explain asshole.
He's very vocal. It is actually coming over the air, and we can hear what he's saying. So, just letting you know. I don't know if you can hear me.
Is it making sense to you, Rodrigo?
Yes, it is. Yes, absolutely.
Good. Very good. What I'd like to do is I'd like to have 24 hours to collect some links and some information and organize my thoughts.
Yep.
And come back tomorrow night and perhaps readdress this issue and how I think mind control may play a part in making this an issue and chipping away at, as I said, one of the things that's important about America is that it shows it's a model for democracy for other countries. And if you can cancel out that democracy here, then you can take over the world with it.
Right.
And I think for a lot of us that are conspiracy minded, that applies to the New World Organization, or, whatever we call the NW.
The powers that should not be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The powers to be that probably should not be.
Yeah, that's right.
And further, via Dr. Jacques Vallée, the idea of the control system.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit bigger of an issue than legalities or countries. That's more alluding to an idea that we live in a matrix, as you will, and it's hosted by a quantum computer, perhaps, that was already in existence a long time ago. Yeah. And you have to understand that if there was a quantum computer created, let's say in 1965, in the first 1965, then forever after that, there would have been a quantum computer.
Yeah.
So that would have hijacked time in a way, so that whatever was not convenient historically could then be
I need you to get off that thing.
redone and respun
Yeah.
and re-explained and reverse engineered.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'd like
Lucy,
to come back tomorrow evening and talk about this more if you would have me.
I will. That's fine. Wanted to thank you for joining us on the show today. We will carry on tomorrow. It'll be 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday night on transcendenceradio.com. If you could mute your mic, I'm just going to play a song, and it will be ending the show after the track. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and please join us tomorrow, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay? Thank you, Lucy.
Much love, Rodrigo. Thank you.
Okay.
Is tired of living in motion on the bright side, killing the weak and force, switching off controls. The fires burn, they stop the motion. People killed in times when evidence is tired of living in motion in light bright. To remind you